Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our interview. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm coming to you today from the home of the Gadigal and Wongal people. I'm really happy to introduce today with us Lisa Tolo, who is the team leader at Camden Family Daycare. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I'm meeting with you today on the Dorriwell land.
Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with us today. So, Lisa, could you start off by telling us why do you think planning for emergencies is so important for family daycare?
Well, I think the number one thing is that family daycare educators work alone. So they're the ones solely responsible for keeping themselves and the children safe. I think having a plan gives them the confidence to know what to do if ever there's a real emergency that comes up, because at that time you could be feeling quite panicked, and if you already have a plan, it saves you time worrying or thinking it through, and it can save you making a wrong decision. Just put your plan into action. It's also part of compliance and being compliant with the regulations and codes of practice, that everybody has a plan in place.
Fantastic. So can you tell us about an actual emergency that you're aware of in family daycare and what happened?
I can actually. We had a very recent incident with an educator who had a sick child. The child already had medical conditions known to her, so it was lucky that she had a comprehensive risk minimisation and communication plan. She knew what the signs and symptoms were for that child, and she actually went to get him off the bus. The bus driver said he'd been unwell on the bus. She took him inside. She could see that he was not feeling very well at all, and through knowing him, knowing what his signs and symptoms were, and through talking to him, she worked out that he just wasn't great. So she just jumped into action, called an ambulance. She called his mother, who happened to already be on her way because the school had alerted her just before he left to the fact that he hadn't been feeling well at school. So having a plan in place for that really helped her. She was a very quick thinking educator as well, because she was able to text families and let them know that not to be alarmed that there was an ambulance in the driveway for when they were coming to pick up their own children. And she stayed with the child until his mother arrived, and then the paramedics arrived and took over. Following that, we sort of debriefed, we talked about the plan and how she worked through that. So having a plan was very helpful, especially the risk minimisation plan at the time, because she really knew what to look for and what to do if it had been one of those medical conditions that he had.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds like a great response. Thank you for sharing that with us, Lisa. Something else I want to talk about is there's been a lot of confusion in the sector about the need for emergency evacuation plans to be displayed near every door. How complex do these need to be, those plans?
They don't need to be complex at all. They actually need to be quite simple, because obviously in emergency you're not going to stand there and read pages of a plan on what to do and how to get out. So the more simplified the better. And having just been through A&R, I can tell you a couple of things that our authorised officers were looking for. One of those being that the evacuation plans were clearly displayed at the exit or on the exit if possible. That the route and the alternate routes were marked, and they were really looking for having them marked as "you are here" at the specific exit to show the readers that this is where you are.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, it's always good to hear some feedback on some A&R experiences, so that's very helpful.
Yeah.
And Lisa, what do you recommend that every family daycare educator should have in their emergency evacuation pack, or their grab bag, some people call them?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, emergency contact information, because depending on the emergency, you may not have access to digital information, whether that be your phone or your software. So I think having up-to-date printed information. So I think it's good for educators to keep that information constantly up to date. So if they know, it's probably just good practice every now and then to update them anyway, but particularly if you know a family has changed their details, you should update the details for that child. And then I think other than that, like probably some water, some cups, because you're probably not going to be grabbing things like drink bottles, maybe some provisions like tissues, gloves, snacks. First aid kit should be nearby or one in the bag if possible, and maybe like a book or something to keep the children entertained if you have to sit for a while. Yeah, I think a lot of educators too will be having, they're suggesting white hats so that in an emergency, the emergency services people can identify who's responsible, like who's called emergency services.
Okay, great. Yeah, they're great suggestions. And from your knowledge or experience, do you feel that risk management actually helps in pre-thinking the sort of emergencies each educator might face?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with that. I think like working through a risk assessment, it's, you know, it allows you the time to really sit there and think about, okay, what are the risks, what are the hazards, what emergencies might come up that, you know, I could possibly have to face, and then what am I going to do in that circumstance? Where am I going to go? Where should I take the children? Who should I contact first? If you've worked through it all in a risk assessment in, you know, in your own time, when you're not panicked, because obviously in an emergency situation you're going to be quite panicked, you're going to have adrenaline running through your body, you're not going to probably think straight. So, well, some people do, some people don't. You never know until you're in an emergency. So I think having that plan to work through really gives you a guide on this is the potential emergency and this is what I'm going to do in this scenario.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, that's great feedback. It can be a lot to think about when we're under pressure. So, Lisa, last question. What are the top 3 things you would do if you were an educator to ensure that you were prepared for an emergency?
First of all, I would have a plan, and I would have that for every scenario. So I would have thought about what's going to happen. What will I do if I have a fire? What will I do if there's an intruder? What will I do if a snake decides to just visit for the day? So a plan of what I need to do, where I'm going to go, who I'm going to call, all those things would be the first and foremost. And then I would practice the plan for each scenario. So making sure that, you know, not only do I know what I'm doing, but the children are quite comfortable that, you know, if we call a fire, they know that they're going to follow these certain instructions for a fire. If there's an intruder and we're going to do a lockdown, then they know what to do. And I would suggest having everything ready to go. So like you said before, your grab bag, have those supplies, have those emergency contacts, have it there ready to go. Especially, like, as I said, the emergency contact numbers and things like that, and making sure that they're up to date at all times. So that would be my top 3. Have a plan, practice it, and have provisions ready to go.
Fantastic. Well, that's given us a really good insight into risk management in family daycare. So thank you so much for your time, Lisa, and we'll chat soon.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me.
Bye.